you're hearing this, it means I survived long enough to tell it." He wasn't content to threaten me from across the street. He followed me halfway around the world, convinced we were meant to be. I first met Alexander Sapper on a misty spring morning in London. I was editing a feature in Hyde Park Corner. She was arriving at a nearby cafe after teaching her dawn meditation workshop. Her presence seemed to still the air, dark hair pinned neatly, a pale blue shawl draped over her shoulders, and an effortless glance that had drawn hundreds of thousands of followers to her Instagram page. She was warm, witty, and disarmingly honest about her transition from a corporate lawyer in New York to a global wellness influencer. We chatted about the city's hidden bustle, the way the coach horns echoed like distant thunder, and I left feeling I just brushed against something luminous. Within a week, I was reading her newsletter. Alexandra's mornings began with sun salutations by the Thames. Her afternoons involved tea at the Serpentine. Her evenings closed with candlelit journaling in a flat overlooking the city lights. She spoke of building a sanctuary within chaos, how mindfulness could diffuse the loudest anxieties. I admired her clarity, the scent of bergamot in her words, the soft timbre of her convictions. And then came the messages. It began harmlessly, a direct message on Instagram. "Hey Alexandra, your workshop changed my life. Thank you." She reported it as sweet, almost banal, a fan reaching out. But 3 messages later, he learned her middle name, the name of her childhood dog, and that she preferred jasmine tea to caramel. He signed each message R. At first, she replied politely, "Thanks for your support." But R's tone shifted. He began to speak of destiny. "We were meant to find each other in this life. I can show you a love deeper than you imagined." She ignored him. We all did. Within days, email alerts pinged at unfathomable hours. Midnight British time, dawn Bali time, whenever she logged off. R knew when she went live, inviting her to private chats. He praised her voice as hypnotic, then steered his compliments towards obsession. "I dream of showing you London by moonlight. I'll follow you anywhere, my light." Behind her composed smile in the videos, I sensed uncertainty. She confided in me over tea at the tiny Notting Hill bistro. "He's precise, every compliment rehearsed, it chills me." Yet, after each workshop, she checked her phone again, perhaps hoping for normalcy. In July, she boarded a flight to Bali for a 2-week retreat, a safe distance, she thought, from London's bustle and R's fantasies. One would believe that 7,000 miles might quell an unhinged admirer, but as the sun rose over Ubud's rice terraces, her inbox lit up. "What a beautiful sunset, almost as beautiful as your smile." A video link followed, time-stamped at 2 in the morning. She played it. On the screen, a shadow moved outside her villa's sliding glass door. A foot, dark-socked, scuffed the wooden deck. R's voice whispered off camera, "I bought a gift for you." Her breath caught. She dashed to lock the door, heart hammering like a frenzied percussion. She contacted local police. They knocked politely the next morning, offered sympathetic smiles and filled a report. The next evening, a hotel security guard found R's empty backpack beneath the poolside lounge chairs. Her panic climbed. Even the retreat staff seemed uneasy. They escorted her inside, warning her not to leave alone. Yet each night, the distant hum of motorcycles and the rustle of bamboo whispered conspiracies. Back in London, the UK police pressed charges: harassment, stalking. A restraining order issued. Alexandra thought she was safe, but the man she thought bound by British legalities was no ordinary stalker. He boarded a plane the day after the order, clutching his buff-coloured backpack and a printout of her itinerary. He landed in Denpasar, rented a scooter, and followed the GPS breadcrumb trail she accidentally left public on social media. By late August, Alexandra had fled Bali for Laos, seeking refuge in a jungle retreat she heard whispered about on a travel forum. She hoped anonymity in a place of waterfalls and teak bungalows. I remember the look on her face when she emailed me the address. Pale, drawn, like the moon reflected on a still lake. I booked the next flight to Vientiane, my mind racing faster than my heartbeat. She'd arrived before me, settling into a bungalow that overlooked a river gorge. The air smelled of wet earth and wild jasmine. At night, cicadas strummed to the stars. She confided that she hadn't slept properly in weeks, dreaming of footsteps, misplacing her phone, then remembering R's photo plastered on her screen. I reached Laos 2 days later. We met at a stall by the Mekong, sipped iced coffee sweetened with condensed milk, and she scanned the crowded ferry terminals for any sign of him. She told me she felt like a ghost in her own life, haunted by a single name, Rob Keating. Every local policeman shrugged, his crimes committed in another jurisdiction. My anxiety knotted tighter as we hiked to the retreat. I imagined R slipping through the underbrush, silent sandals on damp leaves. On our second night in the jungle, the retreat host, an elderly monk named Songji, said he'd seen a stranger lurking near the entrance. Alexandra froze. We crept out, flashlights slicing through the dark. At the gate, footprints pressed into the soft mud, large, booted, fresh. She dropped to her knees, tracing them with trembling fingers, then looked down to see her own footprints mingling with his. She gasped. "Run," I whispered. We tore back to the bungalow. The door was ajar. Inside, the air was colder. The wooden floorboards creaked as though breathing. On the low table lay a small box wrapped in banana leaf. Alexander didn't need to open it to know it was from him. She froze, tears spilling. I opened the door wider. The long corridor led to darkness. He stood at the far end, tall, in a charcoal shirt, face obscured by shadows. In his hand he held a Polaroid. The photo showed us, Alexandra and me, huddled on the porch swing in London, laughing in sunlight we thought were private. He followed us every step. Alexandra screamed, a sound that fractured the night. R lowered his hand, took a step forward, then Sonchi appeared, chanting, and the stalker faltered. The monk placed a hand on R's shoulder. R blinked, as if waking from a spell, dropped the photo, and fled into the black. Alexandra and I left Laos at first light. She landed in London a woman changed, eyelids heavy with memory, a quiet awareness in her eyes. Over the following weeks, detectives in 3 countries coordinated for the first time: UK, Bali, Laos, exchanging fingerprints, phone records, flight manifests. In May 2025, Rob Keating was convicted of international stalking, not just under British law, but under a merging treaty for cross-border crimes against individuals. But the conviction did not end it. In the press gallery, a journalist asked Alexandra how she felt. She paused, glanced at the shuttered cafe windows on Baker Street, and said, "I lost a piece of myself chasing peace that didn't exist. He didn't just follow my body, he haunted my trust. If I learned anything, it's that freedom isn't where you run, it's in deciding what fears you refuse to feed." She closed her eyes, a single tear gliding down her cheek. She had faced her watcher, and in doing so, reclaimed her story. If you made it this far, maybe you're not like the others. Hit subscribe and I'll keep the stories coming. He drove 60 miles to crash through her gates at 2 AM, convinced that Jennifer Aniston was destined to be his forever. Jennifer Aniston's life had always straddled 2 worlds, the glaring spotlight of Hollywood and the comforting routine of her Bel Air home. After a long day on set, she will return to her manicured privacy of her gated estate, olive trees lining the drive, flowering bougainvillea climbing stone columns, and the quiet hiss of sprinklers at dusk. Inside, she prized simplicity, creamy walls, pale oak floors, and family photographs smiling on the mantel. Her days began with a mug of chamomile tea on the terrace overlooking city lights and ended with light jazz in the living room. Despite her fame, this sanctuary made her feel ordinary, grounded, at peace. It was here, beneath the layered security of tall hedges and high walls, that Jimmy Wayne Carwile made his quiet entry into her life. A 48-year-old mechanic from Mississippi, Jimmy had watched her on screen for decades, first as Rachel on a sitcom, then in blockbuster films and red carpet premieres. To him, she was more than a celebrity. She was the woman he'd been waiting for, the one destined to rescue him from the loneliness. So he began to write. It started with letters, handwritten pages slit through the tiny slit of her front gate. The first note was polite. "My dearest Jennifer, you are the light in a dark world." Security found it mundane, almost quaint, and destroyed it unopened. But the second letter grew urgent. "I know your schedule. I know your guards. I will wait for you." It rattled the gate guards, who tightened patrols but found no clues, only the empty envelope stained with coffee. By the third week, Jimmy had graduated from letters to live surveillance. Guards reported seeing a lone car idling near the entrance at dawn. He wore a mechanic's jumpsuit and stared at the gate until the guard's silhouette appeared in the booth. He'd smile, 35 seconds of hello, and then drive off. Cameras caught his license plate, yet a background check revealed nothing that disqualified him from driving within city limits. He'd smile politely when interviewed by police. "I'm just a fan, officer." Next came the gifts. Small paintings of her face, crudely executed, smeared with oil pastels, and a plastic garland of daisies hung on her gate. They arrived at dawn, often accompanied by a note, "For my bride." Behind that phrase lay an obsession. He believed himself Jesus and her his chosen one. The gifts felt threatening, intimate. Her security team disposed of them, but the messages persisted. On May the 5th, 2025, everything escalated beyond mere intrusion. At 2:17 a.m, an armoured SUV barreled into the guard post, shattering plexiglass and sending splinters flying. Guards scrambled as the vehicle's engine roared. Through the mess, they glimpsed Jimmy's face framed by the steering wheel, eyes wild, knuckles white against the glass. He leapt from the wreckage, brandishing 2 roses, one white, one red, and staggered towards the broken gate. Inside her bedroom, Jennifer awoke to sirens and alarms. Security cameras cut to chaos, uniforms chasing a lone figure through the gate's shards. She pressed herself against the wall as guards tackled him, cuffs clashing. Clutched in his blood-stained hands were the petals of the red rose. Guards led Jimmy away, his jumpsuit torn, eyes pleading. "I just wanted to be with her," he said, collapsing to his knees. Officers recovered his phone, dozens of recorded voicemails, confessions of love, threats of despair if she refused him. One time-stamped message chilled them. He had crawled through her garden hedges at night, whispering her name outside her bedroom window. At the precinct, detectives found his social media. Jimmy posted wild vows on Instagram Live. "She is my queen. I'll die for her," and tagged her official account. The violation rippled through her world. A restraining order would barely contain his delusions. In court, he persisted on a psych evaluation, claiming divine mandate. Yet the scars he left, the uprooted gate, the guard's injuries, the roses scattered in blood, were all too real. He was convicted of stalking, vandalism, and assault with a deadly weapon. Each charge echoed his unmoored obsession. Weeks later, in a quiet interview, Jennifer was asked how one woman could endure such terror. She paused, eyes steady, and spoke softly. "You learn that safety isn't a place, it's a state of mind, and when someone believes they own your story, you reclaim it by living. Every morning I walk into this garden knowing he's behind bars, but also knowing fear can never plant roots where courage grows." Her words hung in the air, a testament not to her fame, but to her undeniable strength. If you're hearing this, it means I survived long enough to tell it. If you made it this far, maybe you're not like the others. Hit subscribe and I'll keep the stories coming. He traced my every step in a battered notebook, each entry a promise that I would never escape his watchful pages. The first time I met Doris Aguila, she was laughing as she ducked under the awning of Phoenix's hottest taco truck, her auburn hair catching the neon glow of its sign. It was late October 2024, and the air tasted of mesquite smoke and warming spices. Doris was 25, a marketing associate who spent her days pitching brands and her evenings hiking Camelback Mountain's rugged trails. She had an easy confidence, the kind that made strangers confide in her and made her a target. I was photographing the city's rising entrepreneurs for a magazine feature when our interview overlapped at a networking mixer. She charmed the room with jokes about her grandmother's tamale recipe and serious devotion to weekend yoga. I asked about her life, and she said she just ended a brief relationship. It wasn't a good match. She laughed, raising her coffee cup. "But I'm ready to focus on me." We parted that night, promising to share contacts. I never forgot her warmth until weeks later, when she called me in tears. It arrived on November the 2nd, tucked under her apartment door like a desperate secret. A plain white envelope, no return address, held a single sheet of lined paper, corners creased. In neat, looping script, it read, "Doris, I miss you already. Tell me when you'll be back in town. J." She stared at the J at the bottom, brow furrowed. She dated Juan Cuala for only 3 weeks and they parted without rancor. He was polite but tentative. He'd sent occasional texts, nothing alarming. Probably a misdirected note, she'd shrugged, tossing it into the recycling bin. But by the next morning, another note appeared. This one slipped through the mail slot. Its envelope stamped, urgent, and inside, "I see you every morning on the 7:15 bus. You wear black leggings and that red scarf. You looked beautiful today." Her stomach knotted. She rode a different bus. She commuted by car most days. Who was watching her? She checked her windows and locked doors, convinced an errant breeze had left it ajar. Then she found a third note on her windshield wiper. "That blouse was too low. You caught my eye, but I want more than a glance." Fear bloomed in her chest. She reported it to the leasing office. They suggested filing a police report. She called 911. The dispatcher assured her an officer would patrol. By nightfall, a fourth note lay waiting in her mailbox. "I thought you wanted to focus on yourself, but I'm not done with you." Determined to catch the intruder, Doris checked her security cameras the next morning. Nothing. No one approached her door, no lingering figures. She felt watched, but invisible. Then her phone buzzed, a photo text from an unknown number. It showed her walking into work at sunrise, just minutes before, yet her phone had been in her purse. The image was crisp, red scarf, black leggings, turquoise ring glinting on her finger. That evening, when she returned home, the leasing office called. Someone had left a package for her. Inside the lobby box was a small, leather-bound notebook, its cover stamped in gold. Doris Aguila. She backed away as the reception sat it on the counter. It was slipped under the door, he said, eyebrows raised. Her heart thundered. She pried it open to the first page, a neat entry dated October the 13th, before the first note. Met her at the taco truck. First glimpse. Auburn hair. Perfect laugh. Her breath caught. Scanning further down, she saw lists, walks, Camelback Trail. Every Saturday. Favorite coffee? Hazelnut latte. Lives? Skyview Apartments, Unit 12B. She sank to a pew by the elevator, hands trembling. She paged further, recounting dates, outfits, moods she'd shown him. She found an entry dated the previous night, her own handwriting, though she never touched the pen. Tonight, I'll slip back inside. She'll never suspect. I'll be the one she trusts. The next morning, Doris steered herself. She took the notebook, evidence in hand, and marched to the leasing office. The manager, pale and uncertain, watched her leaf through the pages. We have a master key, he said quietly. I'll change the locks, add motion sensors. She nodded, calling 911 on the spot. While she waited for the officer, she drove with her hazard lights on and the notebook on her lap, as if she could shield herself. The officer arrived 15 minutes later. Too long, she thought. He read a few pages, said, This is extensive. Whoever wrote this knew every corner of your life. They scoured the parking lot, found fresh footprints leading to her car door, but no prints on the notebook itself. They recommended she stay with friends. She packed a bag and moved into her sister's spare room that evening. Under a blanket, she tried to sleep, the notebook's presence haunting her dreams. Around midnight, her phone buzzed, a new message from the same burner number. You left your notebook behind. I can't sleep without it. I'll bring it back. She froze, phone trembling. She sent a photo of the notebook's cover back to the unknown number. You have it. Please leave me alone. Minutes passed, then another text. I can't help myself. Her sister, awake now, clutched her arm. They called the police. An hour later, officers descended on her apartment and found her body in the bathtub. The notebook's pages torn and bloody screwed across the tiles. Juanquela's prints were on the tub's edge, and in red ink on an open page was a final entry, written in a jagged scrawl not his before. She taught me to love, now I teach her fear. In the weeks that followed, Juanquela pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity, but the notebook, preserved as Exhibit A, told a clearer story than any testimony. Each detailed entry, each list, each intimate drawing of her features spoke of escalating obsession that the law was too slow to intercept. Doris's family set up a foundation in her name, advocating for stronger anti-stalking statutes and emergency protections for victims. At the inaugural gala, her sister whispered to a gathering of lawmakers and survivors. She believed the notebook could contain her life. Instead, it wrote her death sentence. The attendees fell silent. Weeks later, the new law was passed: immediate emergency shelters for stalking victims, mandatory confiscation of personal details from alleged stalkers, and swift revocation of bail in cases of documented obsession. But no law could rewrite the final pages of a life cut short. At Doris's memorial, her favourite hazelcut latte was served, and her notebook was displayed behind glass, its cover scarred, its pages sealed. Visitors left flowers by the exhibit, red roses and black pens, symbols of love, and the written word turned deadly. When I visited, I stood before the glass case and traced my finger on the signage, in memory of Doris Agula, 1999 to 2024. May we never forget the cost of obsession. A breeze from the open window ruffled my coat. I glanced around. No one was there but me, and the ghost of her laughter echoing beneath the vaulted ceiling. If you're hearing this, it means I tried to survive long enough to tell it. If you made it this far, maybe you're not like the others. Hit subscribe and I'll keep the stories coming. The note under my pillow didn't have my name on it, but it described the colour of socks I was wearing in my dream. It was the kind of routine you stop thinking about until someone else starts watching it more closely than you ever did. I started jogging at 6:30 every morning. It wasn't some heroic New Year's resolution. I just needed to clear my head. I'd been laid off from a marketing firm the previous fall, and running gave me something to control when everything else felt like it was falling apart. My route was always the same, through the back of my apartment complex, down the paved neighbourhood trail near the old dog park, under the stone footbridge, then looping back through the pine-lined section near the school. It was peaceful, empty most mornings except for the occasional dog walker or the early bird cyclist. The trees would whisper overhead, and the sun always broke through in the same three places along the curve. It felt safe, familiar, until it wasn't. You see, I noticed him for the first time near the footbridge, hoodie up, standing off the path, like he was waiting for someone. It didn't seem odd, maybe stretching, maybe texting, whatever. I jogged past, but 2 days later, there he was again. Same place, same posture, still not moving. It became a pattern. Each day, he'd appear somewhere new along my loop. He never jogged, never had a dog, just stood there, sometimes closer, sometimes further, but always watching. By the end of the second week, I couldn't shake the feeling. You know when your instincts try to tap you on your shoulder and you keep squatting them away? Well, I told myself it was nothing. I even convinced myself I imagined it. Maybe it was different people, but it wasn't. That Monday, I decided to run earlier, 6 AM sharp. The trail was darker and cooler, Drew clinging to the grass. I was halfway through the pine loop when I caught movement behind me. I glanced back. No one. But when I returned home, something was wedged in the doorframe of my apartment. A flower. A single purple freesia. Taped to the frame was masking tape. I stared at it for a long time. It hadn't been there when I left. I was sure of it. My chest tightened. Then I saw the note. Just a torn scrap of lined paper. One sentence in jittery handwriting. I like the way you run. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just stood there as the hallway seemed to tilt beneath me. That's when fear becomes something different. It wraps around your lungs, makes time slower. I changed my routine. I switched trails, parked in a grocery store 2 miles away and started running there instead. It worked for a few days. He didn't show. Then one morning, I got home and realised my apartment door was unlocked. I never forgot to lock it, never. Inside, nothing was missing, but something had changed. A book on my nightstand was slightly moved, a throw blanket folded differently. My toothbrush was resting, dry, but in the wrong position in the holder. I told myself I was paranoid, that I was unravelling, but that night, I took off my fitness watch to charge it and noticed something weird on the strap, a strip of black tape. Peeling it back, I found a tiny grey object the size of a SIM card, flat, metallic, with a tiny blinking red light, a GPS tracker. He hadn't just followed me, he knew every step I'd taken. I reported everything to the police. They were sympathetic but vague. Could be a prank, maybe a delivery driver. They said there increased patrols but advised me to get a camera. That night, instead of jogging, I drove straight to the nearest precinct and told them to track the device signal. It pinged a few blocks over, an apartment above a deli. Officers went to the address while I waited in the cruiser, palms sweating against the vinyl seats. He answered the door, calm, composed, like he'd been waiting for this moment. His name was Michael, 34, former Amazon Flex driver. He dropped off a package to my apartment building 3 months earlier and felt a connection. He told the officers I smiled at him when I signed for it, that he just wanted to be part of my routine. They arrested him. In his apartment, they found hundreds of photos of me jogging, video stills taken from my living room blinds, a notebook titled Her. Inside, page after page of my daily movement, what I wore, when I left, what music I listened to. One entry chilled me more than any others. I know her dreams. One day, she'll know mine. I moved immediately. New apartment, new city. I threw out every routine I ever built. No more set jogging times, no more visible habits. I even changed my name on all my fitness apps. For 2 weeks after I settled in, I found a note under my pillow. Same handwriting, same paper. The socks with yellow stripes. You wore them last night in your dream. I love when you run in them. I hadn't told anyone. I hadn't posted anything online. No one could have known what I was wearing or dreaming. And to this day, I still don't know how the note got inside my locked apartment. If you made it this far, maybe you're not like the others. Hit subscribe and I'll keep the stories coming. When I finally broke into the apartment next door, I found cameras, dozens of them, all pointed at my walls. When I first moved into flat 3D, it felt like a fresh start. It was a narrow, 2-room unit in an older, red brick apartment building in St. Paul, Minnesota. High ceilings, creaky hardwood floors, and paper-thin walls. But the rent was fair, and after my divorce, I needed somewhere quiet to reset. I worked remote tech support, so I was in the apartment almost 24/7. My only real neighbour was through the shared wall, flat 3C. I never saw them, not once. The building manager told me 3C had been vacant for a while. He said the last tenant moved out months ago and the unit was under inspection. That's what made the sounds at night so strange. It wasn't loud, just sad, sobbing, low, muffled crying through the shared wall. At first, I assumed I was mistaken. Maybe it was coming from the floor above, but night after night, always between 2 and 4 a.m, the soft crying returned. It was too constant to be random. Sometimes it sounded like a woman, sometimes like a child, sometimes it sounded like me. I'd be brushing my teeth and I'd hear it, my own voice, laughing, then silence, or a distorted version of it, like a bad recording. I checked the hallway, no one. Pressed my ear against the wall, nothing. When I turned off the lights and lay in bed, it would start again, closer this time. I told myself it was an echo, a weird acoustic anomaly. I moved my furniture around, trying to disrupt the pattern. It didn't help. On week 2, it was 2:43 a.m. when I heard it. Emma, spoken clearly, whispered through the wall. I sat bolt upright. My phone was beside me untouched. My TV was off. I froze. Emma. The voice was male, calm, rehearsed. I pressed my ear to the drywall. Nothing. I knocked 3 times. No reply. But when I stepped away, I heard faint laughter. Not mocking, delighted. That's when I stopped sleeping. By week 3, I asked the building manager again, "Are you sure 3C is empty?" He looked at me funny. "There's no one on the lease, just boxes in there. We're waiting on an inspection." "Has anyone gone inside recently?" "Not unless they have the key." He jingled his ring. "Only I do." I bought an audio recorder and left it running against the shared wall for 6 hours. The next morning, I played it back. Static, pipes creaking, and at 3:12 a.m, a whisper. "Emma, red hoodie, Tuesday, yogurt, 2 spoons. I stopped the tape. Those were my exact actions from the day before. I couldn't take it anymore. I told the manager I was hearing rodents in the wall. He said he'll give me 10 minutes inside 3C to check the drywall for damage. Don't touch anything, he warned, handing me the key. When the door opened, a smell hit me, like mould and burnt plastic. The blinds were closed, a faint light cut across the room full of wires. Cables ran like veins across the floor, cameras mounted on tripods, laptops lined the walls. Each camera was aimed at the wall. My wall. I stepped forward and realised I was looking at my own silhouette, faint outlines of me cast in real time from beneath the drywall. Light fixtures, camera placement. It was like a mirror of my life captured from the other side. One table held notebooks, each labelled Emma. Inside, logs. What time I ate, when I changed clothes, what I hummed in the shower. Detailed transcripts of me talking on the phone, drawings of my apartment layout. One page said, practice speaking her voice, learn rhythm, learn tone. Then I found the phone. It was recording. My voice played back. Emma, over and over, layered in his voice until it sounded like one, a fusion. They arrested the man a week later. He was the brother of the last tenant. She moved out after reporting him for stalking. He'd broken in, copied her voice, studied her movement. When she left, he stayed in the walls, recording, replicating. He hadn't spoken a word to the police, but when they searched the apartment again, they found a final note taped to the drywall. I'll get it right next time. I moved out. I don't jog anymore. I don't answer unknown calls. I sleep with white noise loud enough to drown out memories. But every now and then, I swear I hear my own voice from the inside of the closet, whispering, Emma. If you're hearing this, it means I survived long enough to tell it. If you made it this far, maybe you're not like the others. Hit subscribe and I'll keep the stories coming. The kids across the street waved to my daughter every night until I knocked on the door and realised the house had been empty for years. We moved to Maple Hollow in September of 2022, thinking we finally found peace. The kind of peace that lives at the end of a quiet cul-de-sac where everyone smiles too politely and lawns stay suspiciously manicured. After a messy separation, I just wanted a clean break for me and my 7-year-old daughter, Sophie. We'd been living in a cramped city apartment, but now we had space. A yard, a garden, even a wraparound porch. Our house sat across from an older brick home with tall hedge and some faded curtains always drawn. The realtor said that place had been vacant for years, something about the owner moving to assisted living and no one stepping forward to sell it. I barely paid attention. I was too busy choosing curtains and trying to convince Sophie that this move would mean new friends, better sleep, fewer bad dreams. She picked the room at the front of the house, the one that looked out over the street. From the first night, she said she liked it because the kids across the road waved good night. I smiled, tucked her in, and didn't think twice. I didn't see the waving myself until 3 days later. I was walking past Sophie's room with laundry when I glanced out her window and saw movement in the darkened house across the street. 2 small figures in the upstairs window, pale, still. They were waving. I blinked. The light in the house flickered. Then they were gone. I walked into Sophie's room. Who are those kids you see? I asked gently. She grinned. Just 2 of them. A girl with pigtails and a boy with no shoes. They wave every night when I turn off the light. I walked to the window. The other house sat in darkness. Curtains still drawn, no lights, no movement. That weekend, I cleaned Sophie's window. As I wiped the glass, I noticed small, faint handprints on the outside pane. Too small for an adult, too high for her to reach. That night, I left her curtain open a sliver and sat on the edge of her bed. She pointed to the window across the street. They're waving, she whispered. I looked, but the window was dark. Sweetheart, there's no one there. She frowned. But they wave at me. I wave back. Sometimes they say things. I didn't ask what they said. On week 3, it was 2:10 a.m. when I heard it. A knock. Not on the front door, on Sophie's bedroom window. 3 short raps. I ran in, flipped on the light. She was still asleep, arm clutching her stuffed giraffe. I yanked back the curtain. No one. The next morning, I found something wedged between the screen and the glass. A Polaroid photo. Old, faded. It showed 2 children standing in front of our house. A girl with pigtails and a barefoot boy. The date scribbled in pen. August 1981. I took it to the police. The officer frowned, said they'll check the house across the street. He came back the next day and told me it was locked tight, sealed for years. No one on the utilities, nothing but dust and spiders. That night, I nailed Sophie's window shut. I couldn't sleep. I began researching. I dug through old-time archives and found a brief mention of a fire on Maple Hollow from 1981. The article was vague, something about a tragic accident involving 2 foster children. The house matched the address across the street. I had to know. So one night, I left Sophie asleep and I crossed the road with a flashlight and a crowbar. The front door gave way with a brittle crack. The air inside was damp, mouldy. The living room looked frozen in time. Magazines from the 80s, furniture covered in sheets. But the upstairs, that was something else. I climbed the stairs, flashlight shaking. At the end of the hall was a small room with faded wallpaper, circus animals yellowing with age, 2 small beds, 1 mattress on the floor, toys still arranged, dolls with cracked porcelain eyes, a pair of worn barefoot slippers tucked neatly under the bed. The closet door stood slightly ajar. My flashlight flickered. Inside, the walls were covered in photographs of us. Me, Sophie, the house, the window, our backyard. One image showed me brushing Sophie's hair at the kitchen table, and the most recent photo, from that morning, Sophie in her pajamas waving from the window. Pinned beneath the note, written in child scrawl, "We like her best." I moved us out by sunrise. The police investigated, but said the house was still sealed. No fingerprints, no recent activity. And the photographs, gone when they arrived. They told me I must have imagined it, dreamt it. Sometimes stress causes visual hallucinations, they said. But Sophie still remembers. We live 3 towns over now, and last week, while I was unpacking boxes, she ran to the window and whispered, "They found us." I rushed to her side. She pointed across the street. A house, quiet, dark, and in the upstairs window, 2 pale figures stood side by side, slowly waving. If you're hearing this, it means I survived long enough to tell it. If you made it this far, maybe you're not like the others. Hit subscribe and I'll keep the stories coming. He knocked at my door in a Halloween mask, whispering promises I hadn't asked for, and a drill in his hand to make them real. I moved into flat 4B of Rosewood Court on a golden September afternoon, carrying a single suitcase and a head full of fresh starts. The building was a converted Victorian boarding house on the edge of Eastbourne's pebbled shoreline, its red bricks softened by climbing ivy and framed by wind-bent pines. Inside, a narrow corridor led to 7 flats. Mine was at the very end, the door painted a hopeful robin's egg blue. My previous studio had smelled of damp concrete and city noise. Here, I woke to distant gull cries and the tang of sea salt. I unpacked my canvases along the hallway wall, hung shells from my Brighton trip on the tiny nails above the radiator, and sat by my work desk by the window. From there, I could see the crumbling pier jutting in the horizon and feel the breeze drift in, carrying carnival echoes from the nearby fairground. I spearheaded my latest graphic novel in the window's glow, Late night pencil strokes, tea mugs half drunk, and jazz crackling from old speakers. I enjoyed the solitude, the gentle rhythm of seaside life. My neighbour, Darren, in 2B, was polite but distant, always quick with a nod in the hallway, a brief hello if our paths crossed. A steady guy, I thought, reliable in the way people are when they keep their distance. That changed the evening of October the 28th. I just closed my laptop, weary from revisions. I lit a candle on the mantel. A chill wind rattled the sash windows. A flyer from the Halloween ball at the pier fluttered against my shoe. I brushed it aside and padded to the kettle. The corridor beyond was quiet, too quiet. I paused, listening. Footsteps, soft, measured, then a pause, just outside my door. My heart stuttered. A deliberate knock, 3 slow raps, echoed through the door's old wood. I peered through the peephole. There stood Darren, masked in a grinning, white Halloween jack-o'-lantern plastic mask, his dark eyes visible through the triangular holes. In one hand, he held a cordless drill. I froze. "Darren?" I croaked. "Is everything okay?" He lifted a finger to his lips, signalling hush. Even through the mask, I felt his breath, a faint rasp. He tapped the drill against the wood once, twice, and whispered, "Just checking the locks." Nervous, I fumbled my keys, unlocked the chain, and cracked the door. His mask tilted. "Neighbours should know each other," he said, voice muffled, "especially before Halloween." I forced a smile. Thanks, I'll keep that in mind." I shut the door and bolted it 3 times. Over the next week, every evening at exactly 8:15 p.m, Darren knocked. 3 slow raps, drill in hand, mask on. Always the same routine. I'd hurry to the door, heart drumming, only to find him pressing the drill against the wood, rotating it slowly, then offering inane small talk about the weather, my writing, the fair's ghost train ride. My unease bloomed into dread. The hallway light flickered each time I opened the door, casting this mask in shifting shadows. One night, I left him outside. I cracked the peephole and said, "I'm not interested, stop knocking." His silence stretched, then he tapped the mask with the drill's bit, the sound tinny and mocking. "You have to let me in sometime," he whispered. "I need to see you." Days later, I discovered a package slipped under my door at dawn. A carved pumpkin half full of sand, the drill bit buried like a diabolical seed. Attached was a note in spidery handwriting. "I bore the hole myself." I shook. The drill bit was slick with oil. My hand trembled as I tossed the pumpkin into the stairwell garbage. When I returned from work, I found the drill on my doorstep, humming batteries and bits neatly unscrewed. No mask this time. I called the superintendent, but maintenance records showed no repair calls. The elevator rumbled empty. In flat 4B, only my door stood ajar a fraction. My phone pinged at 2:07 a.m, an unknown number. I opened it to find a picture of my bedroom door from outside, moonlight casting its rectangle on the hardwood floor. I never left my phone unattended in the hallway. The next morning, the number traced to a burner bought just blocks away. Next, I began noticing small changes in the flat. A pillow turned at an odd angle, a stray drill shavings on the windowsill, my notebooks rearranged. I installed a smart lock, yet each night when I returned home, the log showed an unlock at 3:13 a.m. before I'd even gotten to the building. The only entry method would require a physical key. One night, I sat my phone to record audio in the hallway. At 8:15 p.m, a low rhythmic tap surfaced, drill against door, then a soft panting on the recording. I grabbed my spare camera from the kitchen, pressed record, and pressed it against the peephole. He knocked. I hit stop. The footage revealed nothing but glare, yet I felt the lens move, as if someone inside had shifted it to capture me. I called the police. They took the drill and the mask as evidence, ran latent prints, non-matched. They swabbed the hallway floor for DNA. Nothing. "He's a ghost," the officer said, tilting his head. "If he's not on camera and he's wiping prints, we're chasing shadows." Halloween Eve arrived, a perfect night for horrors real and imagined. The fair bloomed with laughter and screams from the ghost train. Children in costumes lined the streets. I painted a "Do Not Disturb" sign on my door and decked a fake spider web across the peephole. I resolved to stay in, lights off, phone in hand. At 15 p.m, the hallway darkened and then a faint glow flickered, a torch's beam. I pressed my back to the wall, breathing shallow. Then the worst knock I've ever heard, frantic, almost angry, each rap splintering silence like nails on slate. I didn't answer. I dialed 999, whispering, "He's here, he's got a drill." The operator told me to stay calm. My phone's reflection showed golden streetlights behind me, no one at the door. Yet the knocking continued, accelerating. 3, 4, 5 raps, a pause, then a deep grind as the drill bit kissed the wood. I heard the drill motor whine, felt the shudder through the door. Splinters flew, a small shower of wood chips. I screamed, hurled my coffee mug at the peephole. Glass shattered. Behind, the masked grin flashed in the rubble. I flung open the door, brandishing a kitchen knife. He lunged. I stabbed at the white plastic mask. It alerted with a hollow crack. The figure staggered back, drill spinning widely. I slashed again, and his mask fell to the floor, revealing skin as pale as moonlight, eyes black with obsession. He dropped the drill, sprinted down the corridor. I chased him barefoot, knife posed. At the stairwell, he vanished into the hush, disappearing through a fire exit I didn't even know existed. I pounded back, dragging the drill as evidence. The police found footprints in the stairwell, muddy, oversigned, but no match on file. They speculated he lived somewhere in the building's neglected attic or shared fire escape. I moved out 2 days later, scheduling movers at dawn. Now, every October, I leave my new front door dark and locked, phone ready. I still receive a knock at 8:15 p.m, just once, a single rap that thunders through my bones, and when I peer through the peephole, there's nothing. But I know better than to call the police again. If you made it this far, maybe you're not like the others. Hit subscribe and I'll keep the stories coming. I thought I was finally home until the letters began arriving, each one proving someone had known us far too well. I'll never forget the morning we pulled into Westfield. Summer sunlight danced across the broad lawn of 657 Boulevard, where an icy-clad late Victorian house waited behind a wrought iron gate. Maria's eyes lit up as she stepped onto the wide front porch, white painted boards glowing under her feet. She'd grown up in this town, its tree-lined streets, lemonade stands, and block parties still the kind of safe, sleepy fantasy we craved after 3 years squeezed into a Manhattan flat. Inside, the house felt ripe with possibility. Old pine floors stretched beneath our feet, high ceilings arched overhead, and each room whispered of Sunday brunches and holiday laughter. We'd spent months hunting for space for our children, Lily, 8, Ethan, 6, and baby Clara in her lavender nursery. This was the dream. Morning cartoons in the sunlit living room, backyard picnics under the magnolia tree, and Maria tending rose bushes as I fired up the grill. That night, we clinked glasses of champagne on the wraparound porch. Kids tucked into their new rooms with stories and stuffed animals. A breeze rustled the hydrangeas. Fireflies flickered in the yard. I gripped Maria's hand and savoured the hush. Here, I thought, the anxieties of deadlines and subway crowds would fade, replaced by gentle rhythm of a small town summer. I drifted to bed imagining the happy years ahead. But before the dawn had broken, something cracked that illusion. I woke to a faint slip-slap against the front door. Heart hammering, I peered through the peephole. Empty porch, empty street. The latch was unlatched, swinging slightly in the dark. I bolted it shut, hands trembling, and I slid back into bed. Maria murmured in her sleep. I wiped sweat from my brow and told myself it was nothing, just a bad dream. Even as I closed my eyes though, I sensed a pair of unseen eyes watching. 3 days later, I found it half hidden beneath the welcome mat. A thin, cream-coloured envelope, no stamp, no postmark. My breath caught as I unfolded it on the foyer rug. Inside, neat, typewritten text. Congratulations on your new home at 657 Boulevard. It's been waiting for you. Do you know why? Because someone has been watching you for decades. The words were blurred as cold dread pulled in my stomach. Maria hovered behind me, her perfume mingling with the humid morning air. He would do this, she whispered. I forced a laugh I didn't feel. Wrong address, I said, slipping the letter into my jacket pocket. But as I climbed the stairs, I felt the house's hush deepen, as if it guarded secrets it refused to share. Over the following days, normal routines warped into rituals of fear. I checked the locks on every door twice before sleeping. I installed a baby monitor outside the children's room, convinced I'll hear a whisper before anything worse happened. But no amount of vigilance could stop the next letter. Your children are perfect additions. Their laughter echoes too loudly. Soon, there will be quiet. Maria cried when she read it. Ethan trembled that night, convinced the shadows under his bed moved on their own. Lily clutched her teddy and refused to sleep alone. The nursery, once Clara's sanctuary, felt like a cage. Each morning, I received another note, scrawled with intimate details. Our favourite takeaway, the name of our plumber, even the brand of wine I savoured on Wednesday nights. I hired a private investigator, Sam Turner. He staked out our cluster mailboxes, tracked postal routes, and background checked every neighbour from numbers 653 to 661. But his cameras picked up nothing suspicious, only the usual late jogger, the mail truck, and the occasional deer wandering across the lawn. No hand, no face. By August, the heat weighed on us like a living thing. Inside, the air tasted of tension and stale soda. Maria barely left the house. I arrived home each evening to find her pacing the porch, baby monitor pressed to her ear. The children's playdates vanished, school drop-offs turned to silent affairs. I started sleeping in the study with the baby monitor, Jessica's soft cooing lulling me into half dreams where paper whispers rustled down the hall. At 3 a.m, I'd bolt upright, convinced I heard paper sliding under the door. My heartbeat echoed louder than any footsteps. And one night, I even caught myself arguing with the darkness. "Show yourself!" I shouted. Silence swallowed my plea. There was no lightning strike moment, no mask ripped off or face illuminated in a single blinding flash. It built slowly, like a storm gathering on the horizon. But I'll never forget the night it happened. We'd been away for a week, vacation, a desperate break arranged by Maria. I begged her, "Let me handle it. We'll fix the cameras, strengthen the locks." She wouldn't hear it, so I stayed behind, alone with the quiet, determined to end this. The moon was a sliver in the clear sky. I shut every curtain and unlocked the porch light, its wide glow flooding the front yard. Inside, the house felt cavernous, every corner darker than the last. I sat on the porch swing, letter in hand, the latest in a stack of 6. "You're too late. I live here now." My throat went dry. I pressed it into the vault's iron gate, then retreated 2 steps. Through my phone's live feed, I watched the latch turn, click, and the gate creep open, though no one stood in sight. The camera revealed only the empty driveway, painted silver by the moonlight. I leapt to my feet, adrenaline and dread twisted my limbs. "Who's there?" I screamed into the night. My voice rattled the eaves, cicadas stilled. I flung open the front door, nothing but the hush, and the letter wedged under the mat, now damp with dew. I ripped it free. The typeface was crisp, unbolted by moisture. "Thank you for letting me in." I stumbled backwards, the letter falling in slow motion as I sprinted across the lawn. Branches whipped at my face. My heart pounded so fiercely I thought it might burst. I reached the street and turned. No silhouette, no retreating figure, just the watching windows of 657 Boulevard, dark and silent. We moved out within 48 hours, selling for a fraction of what we paid. Maria held me as we loaded the final box into our rental van, our children asleep in the back seats, oblivious to the dread that had chased them from their home. As I turned to shut the door the one last time, a small patch of disturbed soil caught my eye near the front steps. Kneeling, I brushed aside leaves and found the letter. I brushed aside leaves and found letters, buried, crusted, dozens of them, each one typewritten in the same precise font. The top letter gleamed as if fresh. "Welcome back." I left them buried, unread. If you made it this far, maybe you're not like the others. Hit subscribe and I'll keep the stories coming. By the time I realised the bugs weren't insects, it was already too late. I moved into my quiet cul-de-sac on Elmwood Avenue 6 months ago. A modest bungalow surrounded by neatly trimmed hedges and friendly nods from neighbours. After my husband passed, the house felt too big. Every empty room echoed with memories. I longed for tranquility. So when Mrs. Patel next door introduced herself with a plate of warm blueberry muffins and a ready smile, I thought my luck had turned. Debbie was 72 and lived alone after her children moved abroad. Her garden bloomed with hydrangeas and lavender, and she talked fondly of her late husband's passion for entomology. She even joked about her old bug collection, a hobby they shared for 50 years, before moving on to more cheerful tales of grandchildren. I listened over tea in her sunny kitchen, the air redolent of vanilla biscuits and fresh cut flowers. That weekend, she left a gift on my porch, a small, ornate brass box carved with crawling insects. Inside, a single cicada shell, its wings glinting in the afternoon light, and a handwritten note. "For you, a little piece of beauty, enjoy." I hung the shell on my windowsill above the kitchen sink. It seemed harmless, almost poetic, like a tiny sculpture's of nature's handiwork. But when I returned to the house that evening, I found the shell gone and a dead cicada in its place, lying on the counter as if someone had meant to show me. At first, I dismissed it as a prank, perhaps a neighbourhood kid with too much time on his hands. Yet, as the days passed, the insects multiplied and the devices began to appear. One morning, I found a small microphone taped beneath the rim of my porch light, its wires snaking back into the socket. I peeled it away, heart racing, and tossed it into the bin. By nightfall, it was gone. The following day, under the bird feeder in the front garden, I discovered a bug of a different sort, a tiny glass sphere, no larger than a marble, with a pinhole drilled into its metal cap. I pocketed it, fingers sticky with sap, and examined it by my desk lamp. Inside, a micro lens pointed outwards. My breath caught. I realised someone had been watching me, listening in. I replaced the sphere with the cicada shell and set up motion-activated lights. That night, the floodlights blazed when the front door creaked. I leapt from bed, phone in hand, and ran downstairs. The camera feed showed a figure crouched beneath the bird feeder, gently extracting the plastic ball. He stood, a tall man in dark clothes, and slipped away into the night without a sound. My blood turned to ice. I called the police. They took the device but could find no fingerprints. Their reassurance rang hollow. Inside, I felt exposed, like a bug under a magnifying glass. Every rustle of wind through the night sounded like footsteps on the porch. I stopped answering the doorbell and slept with the front door chained. Yet still, morning after morning, a new contraption would lie in wait. Tiny cameras hidden in garden gnomes, microphones taped inside the mailbox, even a small drone hovering near the second floor window. One sweltering July evening, I decided it had to end. I invited Debbie over for tea, determined to confront her. She arrived at 5, smiling and carrying a tray of scones. I led her into the living room, where I placed the gathered devices on the coffee table, the cicada shells, microphones, the glass ball. "Debbie," I began, forcing calm, "I found these on my property. Do you know anything about them?" Her smile faded. She laughed nervously. "Oh, those old things. I thought you'd like my little gifts." My heart pounded. "They're surveillance devices, Mrs. Patel. Cameras, microphones. Someone's been spying on me." She shook her head, voice wavering. "Oh, I don't know what you're talking about, dear." I pressed on, voice trembling. "You do. I've seen you." Her eyes, once warm, narrowed. She stood and walked to the window, gazing into the gathering dusk. "You feel alone, don't you?" she said softly, voice eerily calm. "After he died, you became a magnet for loneliness. I thought I'd keep you company." I backed away. "You've been watching me every moment." She turned, raising a slender hand. "I just wanted to understand you," she whispered. "You know what made you so real." I stumbled towards the door. "Stay away from me." Her gentle smile fractured. "Oh, but you'll never be rid of me." I yanked open the door. She didn't follow, but as I stepped onto the porch, I felt her presence at the threshold, her gaze burning through my skin. I flung the door shut and locked it, breathing so hard I thought I might collapse. I sold the bungalow 2 weeks later and moved into a secured apartment downtown. I never saw Debbie again. Her house remains empty, her garden overgrown, but sometimes, late at night, I hear a faint, metallic click outside my window, and I know she's still collecting her bugs. If you made it this far, maybe you're not like the others. Hit subscribe and I'll keep the stories coming. Spring break, it's the dream, right? Sun, sand, a week to cut loose and forget everything. That's what we chased, me and my friends, just college kids looking for a cheap escape. We found a beach house, loaded the car and peeled out, ready for the best time of our lives. But someone else had plans for us. This isn't about a haunted shores or cursed pit. It's about a vacation, and a stranger who wouldn't let us go, and a week that became a slaughter. If you've ever booked a getaway, maybe check who's watching, or don't, for this story is what happened to us. My name's Alex, 21, a junior at State. I'm scraping by in psych. Spring break hit and we were out. Me, Jake, Maya, Sarah and Tyler, 5 of us, bonded since freshman dorms. Jake's the loudmouth. He's tall, sunburns fast, and is always chugging something. Maya's the brain, Dark hair, sharp tongue, and she found the rental. Sarah's the quiet one. She's blonde, artsy, sketches non-stop. And Tyler's the clown, curly hair and dumb jokes. We scraped together enough cash, snagged a beach house, sun-breathed cottage. It was $200 for a week, remote, ocean front. It was an old listing, had blurry pics and no reviews, but we didn't care. We packed the Jeep with the coolers, swimsuits, a busted speaker, and we hit the coast, screaming bad pop songs into the wind. Day one's golden, sun's blazing, sand's hot, waves crash blue. The house is rough, peeling paint, snagging porch, windows salt crusted, but it's ours. Inside stale, creaky floors, faded colour couch, and a whiff of something stale. We drop our bags, crack the beers open, and hit the beach. Hours melt by, swimming, splashing, Jake cannonballs, Sarah sketching the dunes. Dusk falls, sky's pink, air cools. We build a bonfire, driftwood pops, sparks dance. Maya spots tyre tracks, fresh, deep, curving off into the scrub. Weird, she says. The nearest road's a mile out. Tyler shrugs. Fisherman, just chill. Night deepens, stars sharp, fire dims. Then we hear it. A snap. Sharp. From the dark. 2 a.m. The house groans. Wind rattles shutters. I'm on the couch, buzzed. When it hits, a snap. Like a branch breaking. Then a scrape. Metal on wood. Jake's snoring, sprawled out on the floor. Maya's up though. I say, you hear that? We step out, porch creaks, air's thick, salty. Our flashlight sweeps the dunes, catches a glint, quick, gone. Animal, I mutter. Maya shakes her head. No, too big. Sand shifts. Footprints, fresh, barefoot, lead to the house, stop at the steps. We lock up. Drifter, we say, laughing it off. Sleep's jagged, dreams of eyes in the dark, a blade glinting. Day 2, sun's up, we brush it off. Beach again, volleyball, sunburns, Tyler's awful playlist. But the tracks are back, circling the house, deeper, more. Maya finds a shell, cracked, smeared with red, like blood dried fast. Paint, Jake snorts, tossing it. By noon, the vibe's off. Sand's cold, air's heavy, even in the heat. Sarah sketches, stops, then stares. Someone's out there. We look. The dunes shift. A shadow ducks low. At dusk, the bonfire sputters and wood stamp. A laugh, low, sharp, cuts the wind. Tyler yells, "Show yourself!" Flashlight sweeps. A figure, tall, hooded, knife in hand, vanishes into the scrub. Night 2, lights flicker, power shaky. Footsteps circle, boots, heavy, pacing the porch. Shadows stretch, tall, lean, a knife glints through cracked blinds. Jake bangs on the door. Back off! A blade scrapes back, slow, deliberate. Maya dials 911, but no signal. The phone's dead. Sarah's trembling. He's been watching. Tyler grabs a poker. I'll handle it. A window shatters, glass rains. A hand, calloused, scarred, reaches in. Drops a photo. It's us, sleeping, last night. The laugh's inside, low, wet, under the floorboards. We barricade the doors, tables, chairs, huddled, sweating. Dawn breaks. Silence. He's gone. For now. Day 3. The sun's weak, sky's grey, air's sour. Beach is empty, but tracks are everywhere. circling tighter, red smears on the sand. Photos pile, dozens, us swimming, laughing, stamped with times. 1 p.m, 3 p.m. Sarah screams, her sketchbook slashed, pages bleed ink, drawings of us. Stabbed, gutted. Jake's raging. "I'll find him." He grabs the bat, storms the dunes. We hear it. A scream. His. Cut short. We run. Jake's down, bleeding, eyes wide, sand-soaked red. Night falls, laughs roar, boots pound, windows crack, and the doors buckle. Tyler swings at it. The poker in his hand bends, and all we see next is him dragged, screaming, into the darkness. Night 3. Tyler's gone. Porch is clawed. Blood pools where he stood. Laughs everywhere. In the walls. Our heads. Maya's sobbing. "He's playing with us." Sarah's catatonic. Photos fall from her bag. Us. Running. Now. The power's out. Flashlight catches him. Hooded. Scarred face. Grin splits ear to ear. Knife dripping. Boards snap. The roof leaks red and the walls shake. We bolt upstairs to the attic. Trapdoor jams. Maya's arm slashed. Bleeding. He's behind now, laughing. Sarah swings a lamp and the glass explodes. He grabs her by the neck and tosses her down. Maya screams, "Run!" But he's on her. His knife vanishes from view, sinking in where we wish we didn't see. She's gone. Day 4. No light. Fog chokes. House groans. Attic's a trap. Boots climb. Laughs a chant. "Mine, mine, mine." Photos flood. It's me. Alone. Bleeding. Now. Dunes are gone. The tracks are everywhere. Red. Endless. He's there. Hood off. Face carved. Eyes wild. Knife in each hand. Dripping. The house shakes and the walls crack. The floor caves. I run. Down. Out. The sand's wet. Red. Pulling me. He's fast. The knife nicks my back. My leg. He laughs in my skull. My hands are shaking. I grab a rock. Swing. And it hits the air. He's onto me. Cold. Heavy. The blade nearly touching my throat. Spring break's mine. I'm recording this. My phone's dying. It's 6 a.m. Vacation's dead. The house is his. Bleeding. Breaking. His playground. I'm cut. My back. Legs. Throat's gazed. The blood's hot. It's pooling. He's me. Mirrored in the blade. Grinning. Beach is gone. Red sand's all. Just swallowing me. If you look to go on spring break and find an apartment that's remote and cheap called Seabreeze, don't go. He'll be waiting, watching, as always. It's 7 a.m. here and spring break ends, but I'm not leaving. He's got me, my friends, and we're never going.